This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, good morning. So let us start today's session. Today we will go through the overview of project. Okay, so let me just move to the presentation. So initially, let us understand the project management overview. Then after that, we will go through the overview of the project system from SAP perspective. So basically, project system is a tool. Like other tool, there are plenty of tools available in the market for the project management. So this is one of the tool which SAP gives as part of their core system. You can say whether it is an ERP or ECC or now it's moved to S4HANA. So all those core system, it's a part of that tool which is coming as a bundle along with that one. So initially, let's understand what does it, what we are talking about a project management. So this is the basic definition about project. So normally you need to understand what is a project, so that then only we'll be able to manage it properly, right? So what is a project? So this is a definition. A project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service. It implies a specific time frame, a budget, unique specification, working across organizational boundaries. So if you compare a normal business and project, what does the difference is? For example, if you take any business or any business firm, any business unit, it has a starting point, right? So we start any business, but there is no end point of it, right? Because it's a continuous, we can say in infinity, unless and until it closes down, it continues. So it's a continuous process. But when it comes to a project, it's also a kind of business process, but it is set up to build a unique product or service. So the major thing is when the project will have a start date and an end date. So that is one of the major characteristics. So it has a definite period time, right? My project may be in 6 months or maybe a 3 months project, or it can be a 5-year project. For example, if you take it a building a bridge, that can be a project. So it may take years, 1 or 2 years, but maybe you are setting up a small exhibition, so it can be a small period, so it can be a 3 months period. So depends on the time frame. So whatever it is, whether it is a long or short the duration, but it has a time frame, then surely it has to be completed within a budget. So there will be a certain budget approved, so we have to complete it within that one. Then always there will be a deliverable. So the objective of the project is there will be something you need to deliver it. So that is what we call it as a unique specification. So always the result of the project, there will be something deliverable will be there. For example, if it is a building a bridge, then the deliverable will be the bridge has been delivered, right? So if it is an exhibition arrangement, then exhibition has been completed. So that is the objectives or deliverables. Then we will have working across organizational boundaries. So if you take any business unit, there may be different organizational unit. Finance will be there, procurement will be there, HR will be there, right? Then maintenance will be there. So different section or different department will be there. But in project, it is a temporary settings. So what we need to do it, we need to work across, or we need to have different team working together. So all this department which is available for a business unit will be working together. A certain team will join, right? For example, if you take an SAP implementation, so normally, suppose if it is a system integrator company like IBM or Accenture or Wipro, something like that, then they will take a project for an SAP implementation. So what happens? So how many modules are there? So already as a company, they will be having different departments and different team, different consultants will be there. When it comes to a project, so they will pull one guy from each department. Then build a team. Then that team will work on the project and they will complete it. So these are the factors involved in my project. So when you're talking about a project, so there are things which we need to control it, or we need to take care of it whenever it moves on. So this is, we basically we call it as a triple constraint, the three things. One is the dates, or you can say the schedule, or the cost, or we say the budget. Then we have the resources, so different resources we are using it. So we need to control all these three when you are managing the project. So this is what the tool will do it. So whenever we are using any tool, that tool should be able to do, to control all these things. Along with, whenever you are delivering, there should be quality. So that whenever you inspect it, it should be there as per the quality. Then, as you know, any project, when you talk about, there will be a risk, right? For example, if we take an SAP implementation, one of the major risks is the availability of our resources, or we can say the consultants. If consultant fall in sick, or he has some emergency, what we will do it. So this is one of the risk, availability of the resources, right? Then second thing, for example, getting data. If customer is not able to give you the proper data, then how do we meet the deadline? So anything which is not able to control as per the plan of these three, which we can consider as a risk. So for that risk, there will be a plan B. So whenever we can say the risk, then there will be a plan B, which we call it as a mitigation plan. So this is how the factors involved in the project. So just imagine that I'm not talking particularly about SAP, any tool which we are using it in for a project management, we should have the capability to use all those things or control all those things in the, to manage the project well. Now these are the some of the definitions which normally comes as part of, you know, the mainly these project management bodies, or we call it as PMP bouquet and all those things. So the application of knowledge, skills, tools, technique, people, and system focused on meeting or exceeding stakeholder needs. This is the definition which comes. Then a discipline that will support the planning, implementation, tracking, and control of the project. The same thing which I said. So we need to have the tool, the knowledge, and the team to make or the successful project completion. So what does it mean? So when it comes to, when you jump into the detail, for example, when you want to do the project management, okay, so what are the things we need to do it as per the perspective of the project management perspective, right? So we need to coordinate. So mainly the tool should be able to do these things. So coordination of multiple people. So there will be more than one people, always there will be multiple people will be there. Then resources will be there. So the resources can be, it can be man, it can be or the equipments or tools. Then it can be some kind of services, subcontracting services we are getting from a third party. So all those we normally consider as a resources. So there will be multiple resources. Then multiple tasks will be there. So the task, in the sense, what happened when you have a project to complete it, when we split into small pieces, right? So that activity, suppose you need to have a SAP implementation, then you have a lot of tasks, right? First, you need to conduct the initial discussions, then you need to understand the as-is process, then we will go into the preparing the documentation, or we call it as a fit gap analysis, then we conduct a show and tell. So these are the different tasks. So this task we need to list down. Then there will be a precede others, right? So which we need to arrange it such a way that something will come first, then after that it will be dependent and it will come for the second. So anyway, we will go into detail later. So then there will be multiple decision points approvals, because sometimes we call it as the stage gate approvals. Suppose if you take it an engineering projects where we need to build bridges or some of those kind of complex structures. So initially we will have different levels of approvals, right? We first we need to get the environmental approval, then we need to have a governmental approval, then it will go to the budget approval. So there are multiple decision points, stage gates will be, then we need to approve the design, then we need to make sure that whether that design is equal to do the number of loads, whether it can carry the load, whether it will be sufficient for to handle the traffic. So many things will be there. So these are the decision points. We call it as a stage gates approvals. Then there will be phased expenditure of funds, right? Because each phase need certain funds. Because for example, for a SAP implementation, you need a $1 million, but doesn't mean that all 1 million is required in the initial stages. So it can be required each stages or each phases. So that phase, you can define it first. So basically what happened, you need to understand your cash inflow, right? How do your cash are going to spend it? So you need to identify the cash inflow requirement based on the cash outflow requirement. So when you pay to the vendor, when you pay to the resources, so what is the amount is required and which phase how much is required. So this is all part of the budgeting process. Then this is another things which is required, matching of people, resource to task, right? For example, we need to have a qualified people to carry out the project management. So this is also one of the things which the tool should be able to do it, right? It should be able to qualification, based on the qualification, it should be able to identify the people, then that people will be able to work for a particular task. So basically, we call it as a capacity planning or resource planning. So these kind of things has to be taken care. So again, it continues method of organizing tasks, structured framework to productivity, task sequencing, so which I already discussed, analysis, resource allocation, progressive relative plan. So this is one of the more important. So basically, you might have heard the term which we call it as S curve or progress analysis, earned value analysis. So these are the some of the term normally you might have heard it a part of a project management. So these are the technique or analytical tool which project management team uses to analyze the health of the project. How is it progressing? Whether it will be able to complete it on time, on budget. So all those things will be done based on these progress analysis tools. So the tool which we are using it for project management should be capable to handle it. Otherwise, it will not be no use. So again, when it comes to a project, most important thing is any project, when you are talking about it, will have a life cycle. So which we said it has a starting point and end point. So the life cycle, we call it as a different phases, right? For example, the basic 4 phases of any project is, so it should have an initiation phase, then there will be a planning phase, then execution, then finally closure. So if you look at the effort time graph of a project life cycle, you can see that the maximum effort or the resources required during the execution. So initiation may be a basic. Suppose if you take an example of SAP implementation. So if you take an initiation, means just project team setup and all those things will happen. So at least a project manager and a solution architect and or a team lead, 2-3 people only will do the things. Then it will go to the planning. So you need to have a detailed plan prepared, project charter prepared. So many things will be there. So that will have again a minimum people. But when it comes to the execution, where you have the show and tell, then you need to have a realization. So then you have a development. All these activities are part of execution phase. So in that execution phase, you can see that there will be maximum. All the team will be involved from the system integrator side as well as from the customer side. So you can see that in any project, the maximum number of effort or maximum resources required for the during the execution. Then it will come to the closeout. So closeout is just to handing over the things. So then you need to have the knowledge transfer, right? Then you need to get the payment and all those kind of things. So it is again, it is a smaller phase, or you will be doing the demobilizing, or you can see you are removing the resources from the project. All those things will happen from the closure phase. So this is not only in SAP, I'm saying it is in any project which there should be a life cycle. So we need to consider this in the while using the tool. While how do you mapping the processes? Then again, in a broader way, the scope of any project management, if you look at it, it's a lot of scope, right? So this is what the tool should be able to do it. There should be a team management, then it should be able to do the cost management, then it should be able to do the time management, then change management, right? change, basically there will be two kind of change. One is organizational change management. Another one is some changes happens in the project scope or schedule. So we are talking about the scope or schedule change, not the organizational change management. So organizational change management also a part of project scope when it comes to the implementation and all those things. But here, which we are talking about the major things where the cost impact will be available, where you have a scope change or you have a schedule change, then there will be impact on your cost. Then how do we handle it? Then communication management. So we said we have multiple team involved in it, right? Multiple cross-organizational departments are there. So how do we communicate in between them? So there should be a communication strategy, and then there should be a communication need to be followed. So all those things need to be able to, how do we use that? Then we talk about the issue management, right? So basically, risk and issue is almost related things, right? Risk is something which we identify in advance. So it is something future events. Something happens in the future, what we identify, and that will make an impact on the project scope or schedule, that we term it as risk. So issue means when an impact or when a risk or when an event is happened, then that we record it as an issue. So issue management also, so you should be able to log the tickets. Normally we call it as incident recording, then monitoring, then solving. All those things will come as part of the issue management. So risk management is the planning, risk register, then you need to go for the mitigation plan, then risk analysis, all those will come part of risk management. Then you need to have a quality management. You need to control the quality of the project or the deliverables, whether it is as per the scope, whether it is as per the standards, and whether it is meeting all the quality requirements, so that we need to check it. So we need to have inspections, periodic inspections, source inspections. So many different type of inspections are there to control the quality. Then we go for the procurement management, where you need to have the materials, different materials you need to procure it for a project. We need to procure the services for a project. So it should be able to handle that. Then similarly, the subcontract management. So major projects or larger projects, one contractor may not be able to complete it, because the characteristics of a project is like that, right? Because it's a temporary settings. So maybe all the vendors cannot keep all the resources full time. So some specialization they will take it from a subcontractor. So that is a subcontractor management. So if you like, major players in the, you maybe heard the term EPC project, engineering, procurement, and construction project, where in oil fields or major railway construction and all those things. So those kind of bigger projects, the big major player like Alstom, or you can say the Chevron and all those kind of people, they don't keep all these resources. What they do a lot of subcontracting for different pieces will be given to different vendors to handle it. So it's more important that the tool which they are using, it should be able to handle it, all those things. Then we have equipment management. So there will be a lot of equipments, or you can say tools, or major tools will be used in the project. So you should be able to track it. You should be able to use it. So if any repair comes, you should be able to handle it. So all those kind of things. Then material management, right? You have materials in the project. So how do we stock it? How do we consume it? How do we track it? So these kind of things also we need to happen it in the project management. So this is a huge scope. Now let us check some of the popular project management methodologies. So there are different methodologies used in the world, right? Because mostly you might have heard the term agile, right? That is the latest trend. So it's a methodology. So how do you approach the project management in a phased manner, in a sprint manner? So which is called as a agile methodology. Then Prince2 is another methodology, which again Prince2 also has an agile, and mostly these two agile or waterfall. So waterfall means phased-based manner. So it's like we call it as a big bang approach, where a project will be completed together. That is normally the waterfall will approach. In agile means it will be a small pieces. So these are some methodologies which we use it. So why I'm just narrating it here means when we go for an SAP implementation or PS implementation. So normally the project, thus company which you are going to implement may be following a certain principle or certain methodologies. So we should be able to map that methodology in our SAP. So that is the reason for the methodology. I just check it. Maybe you can read it at high level. How does it do it? So when you talk about SAP methodologies, basically this is the methodology which SAP uses for implementing their softwares. So initially they were using a methodology called SAP. Okay, it's a kind of waterfall methodology. Then now they are using a methodology called Activate, SAP Activate. So in this methodology, it's a mix of Agile and Waterfall. So some of the things are handled through Agile and some of them are through Waterfall. So this is the methodology which SAP uses to implement their software. Okay, so this is the different methodologies there in the market. So if you look at SAP Activate, which is the methodology which SAP uses to implement the softwares, basically any cloud software, you can say S/4HANA Cloud or even on-premises. So nowadays we are talking about the RISE and all those things. So they uses the methodology. In this methodology, these are the different phases: discover, prepare, explore, realize or set up, deploy, run. So these are the different phases. So earlier in the Activate, it was a different, right? It was initial preparation, then we were having a blueprint, then realization. It was like that, right? Then we have a final preparation, then we were having a go live, then we have having a support or hypercare. So now that is just changed in a different way. Then there is a discover phase now, because nowadays what is happening, earlier a major phase was a blueprinting phase. So now in SAP they are not encouraging the blueprinting. Instead of that, they say go for the fit gap analysis. So what happens in the fit gap analysis? You have a standard system available. We call it as a best practices. So you show the best practices, then the business will tell what is missing from their business requirements. So that only you will note it down. So which is we call it as a gap. Then that gap, how do we identify from a standard product? If you are implementing a cloud, obviously there is no scope of customization. If it is an on-premise, then there is an option where you can have a customization to meet that one. So that is the fit gap analysis kind of thing. So they remove the blueprinting, because initially earlier times we used to have a huge blueprinting workshop. So normally the blueprinting will happen, it's like the business process re-engineering kind of things. Their business process we study, then re-engineer it, then we prepare a process. So it takes a lot of time, and which is now SAP has removed it to reduce the time. So basically, if a business want to do a business process re-engineering, then they have to do it before the implementation starts, which is any more part of the SAP implementation project. So on the cost of SAP implementation, normally business used to do their business process re-engineering also together that one. So that is now stopped, because otherwise what happened, there is a complaint that SAP implementation is too costly because a lot of time is taking and all those things. So these are some of the details how the SAP Activate is going. So just for your information, so we can see what are the things, discover what you do, prepare what you do, then what are the things you're doing it. So anyway, it's not our scope of the course, so I'm not going into details. Now let us look at project management. So when it comes to project management overview in the world, or you can say mainly 3 tools are used for handling it. The basic project structuring, the management, basically they use the mostly 3 tools. So one is documents, because a lot of documentation will be in a project, right? It's starting from the project charter until the lesson learned report. Everything is a document. So huge documentation will be there. So one of the main tool which is used is documents. Then the second tool, which we call it as a WBS or work breakdown structure. This is another way of splitting the project into small pieces and handling it. So this is the second tool, which is called a work breakdown structure. And the third tool is, we call it as a project network, where you have a list of tasks, then that you connect it in sequence and all those things. So this is a tool in any of the project management software uses. So since we are talking about an SAP also has the capability to, or SAP has these three tools which we can utilize for the project management. Anyway, that we will look into in detail in the later sessions. So this is an EPPM overview where when we are talking about in SAP project management from SAP S/4HANA perspective. Earlier, we were only talking about a project system. So nowadays, they are talking about something called enterprise portfolio and project management. So it's a broader concept. So what happens? It has a different components in it, right? Because it all based on SAP HANA platform. Then on the top of it, this comes as a core part of the core. We have project system. That's what our topic is. So project system, there is a one module which you can use it for that, which you mainly uses for the financial control and logistics control. Then we have one more module, or it is like an embedded system, which the SAP has it, which is called SAP Commercial Project Management. So mostly this is used for the monitoring, risk management, and all those things, and as well as mostly the project handling, because there are different type of projects, so which I will explain it in again. So some of the projects which call it as a revenue generating kind of project. So those projects mostly there will be bidding and all those things. So that is happened in commercial project management. Then they have one more tool which is SAP portfolio and project management, or we call it as a PPM. This is also earlier it was a separate system. In S/4HANA, it's an embedded system. So in the PPM, you can plan the portfolio, you can link it with their business strategy and all those things. And everything sits on SAP Fiori UX, right? Earlier, we were using that GUI. So nowadays, it's available Fiori, so you can access the things. But again, Fiori is not used mostly by the professional users. Professional users still continuing with the UI. For example, like consultants, right? Or a core team member, still use the UI because it has certain advantages and certain additional functionalities where you can do the implementation guide and all those things is available. But some of the tools which they don't have GUI also. Suppose, for example, if you talk about PPM, everything is based on web. So it depends. Similarly for the commercial project management. So our project system, it is still support the GUI because it was the originally developed ones. So these are the EPPM, how it is used mainly for the portfolio management, project management, and resource management. So it is used for R&D innovation projects. You can use it in IT projects. You can use it. You can use it for the capital project as well as you can for the commercial projects where you have the revenue coming into. Capital means something which is in your internal. Suppose you take, let's take a company which is, suppose you take a Hyundai, they want to build a plant in a country. Suppose they want to build a plant in India. So from a Hyundai perspective, that is a capital project because they are in making some assets, building a factory for their own use. But for example, suppose the L&T contracting or L&T is making that factory for them, suppose. So from a L&T perspective, they are doing that, they are building that project for Hyundai to make money because that is their business, right? So in that case, from an L&T perspective, it's a commercial project where they have revenue coming in. But for example, from a Hyundai perspective, it's a capital project. They are spending it. So these are the two major category of projects which normally comes. So then IT projects, it's a normal handling, which you know, or SAP implementation, Java implementation, so whatever it is. Then R&D innovations are there. For example, if you take ISRO, right, because they are not, it's a kind of capital investments, but it's mostly it goes into R&D, right? Because they do R&D, then they build a satellite, they send it, they test it. So the outcome, it is not sure what happened, right? Because sometimes it can be success, but sometimes it can be failure. So then if it is a failure, then they will close the project, then they go for the next project. So it's like that. So it's an R&D innovation project. So this is a CPM dashboard just for their informations, right? So so far what we discussed, if you have any doubt, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll close this one. Then we can jump into what is there in the PS in a quick way. Okay, I take the silence as no questions. So let me just move on to the next presentation. So earlier we talked about in general, what is there in the project management. Here I will quickly run through what are the functionality available from the module PS in SAP. So these are specifically to SAP which we are talking about. So these what are the modules available or what are the functionality available in the PS module. Okay, so I will quickly run through it, but surely this is our target or this is our syllabus. So each topic we will be covering in separate sessions in detail. Okay, so just if you have very in-depth doubt, you can keep it, which because anyway we will be going to discuss it in detail. But this is an overview. Just quickly I will run through it just to give you an idea. What are the functionality available? So which you can, logically you can connect to the previous presentation, which I talk about. We need so and so things to handle it in a project management. So now we are talking about a specific tool, SAP PS module. So how do we use some of this functionality available in the PS to tackle those requirements of the project management? So again, as an introduction, it's a tool, right? So the tool which is used to handle the project management. So that is in a nutshell. So again, as I said, it is a part of the broader scope, which we call it as enterprise portfolio and project management. So this is one of the tools from an S/4HANA perspective. So again, we talk about the project characteristic. We need planning and controlling, dates, resources, budgeting, cost, revenue, payments. So these are the characteristics which we need to control it. Then across department, we need to have sales and distribution, accounting, controlling, purchasing, production. So all those things we need to handle it. Then we need to handle the projects in a hierarchical manner. And there will be a lot of complexity, which we need to comparing to a unique deliverables. So these are the characteristics. So which we talk about in the previous session also, where we have the triple constraint, dates, resources, cost. So which we need to handle it in the covered environment of quality and risk. So if you look at from a PS perspective, so these are the project phases normally happens. So the different tool which we uses in each phases, it is highlighted here. For example, we have a tool WBS which is available in PS, and also a tool, another tool which is called a network, then sales SD document. So during the concept, we can use it. Again, document also we can use it. Then there is a phase called rough cut planning or rough planning. So initial cost will be there. Then WBS you can use it. Then high level resource plan, network you can use it. Then during that one, there will be a quotation preparations will be there. Then we have a detailed planning where you can structure can be expanded the WBS. Then similarly, in the network, you can have a dependency related network, you can be created. Then approvals, so certain status management is available, then you can release it, then it will generate from the network in production, or suppose it's a production related product related project. Then during that one, you can have an order booked, this quotation you can convert into order. Then execution goes, during execution, you get commitments, cost, revenues, all this will be recorded under the WBS element. Then the confirmations of each processes that will happen on the network level. Then you have a closing. So the cost, what is incurred here, that will be settled. Then all those things will be completed. Then during that time, you will have a billing document generated. So this is how a high level phase and different tools, which we will use it from a PS perspective. Again, we go into detail. Okay, so this is a high level, just to see a overview. Then what are the different type of project normally we handle using a PS? Okay, we have investment projects, which we normally call it as a capital projects. So this investment project is the part where we touch the investment management module of SAP, right? Because when we need to handle an investment project, you need the investment module as well for that one, the initial planning. So again, that also will cover it up. So that is for the investment projects. Then we have customer projects. So initially in the commercial project time, in the previous session, previous slide, I talk about it. So customer projects means where some company you make a project or execute a project for someone else and get revenue out of it. So if you look at the investment project here, only cost will be there. Only your cost or your expenditure will be there. But when you're talking about a customer project, you will have expenditure as well as you will have revenue. You are getting money out of it. Then we are talking about overhead projects. So basically, you might have heard the term shutdown projects, right? That is how in business we should call it, where you use the preventive maintenance for a larger firms in a scheduled manner. So that is what we call it as a shutdown project. So see, if a plant is running, then it requires routine maintenance. I'm not talking about the day-to-day. For example, you have a preventive maintenance where the health check and certain things you need to check it, change it. Suppose if you take a car or a bike, right, certain kilometer runs, then you need to change the oils, then you need to change the brake pad. So this is a kind of preventive maintenance. Then you need to change the tire. So similarly, in each plant will have a different performance or time-based dependencies where we need to have a maintenance taken care. So this, if it is a huge plant, so normally in SAP we use as PM module, plant maintenance module, or we call it as a EAM, enterprise asset module, to handle it. But when a huge planning comes, then PM will not be able to handle it. So to handle it in a better way, to plan it in a better way, we use the PS project system for that purpose. So those kind of projects, we call it as overhead projects. Again, here only cost will be there, and those cost will consume it. So here the difference is we talk about the settlement part. So if it is an investment project, you have a deliverable out of it as an asset. So you will get a fixed asset out of it. Finally, for example, building a bridge or making a factory. So everything at the end, you will have a asset out of it. But when it comes to overhead project, you will not have any new assets. Only thing is you are taking care of your existing asset where you are spending it. Suppose you want to have a repainting of your building, right? Because it doesn't give you a new building. Only thing is the existing building, there is a kind of appreciation happens. So sometimes it will go for asset appreciation, but most of the time it will be a expenditure only. So that is the overhead zone. Then the fourth one, we call it as a management projects, or we call it as a statistical projects, where we create a project just for a budget monitoring purpose or reporting purpose, where you don't have any actual cost and you don't have any actual revenues. It's only for a reporting purpose. So the project system, we can use it, that one also. So there is a concept called statistical projects. So you can use that project just for a reporting purpose or just for a budget control purpose. Then this is a high level structure, how the investment project will happen. So this is what I said, where the integration comes. We'll have an investment management module will be integrated with the PS module. So this is one of the major characteristic when you're talking about the investment projects. So when you're talking about the customer projects where you have a revenue coming, so in that case, you will have a sales and distribution module. SD will come, sales document line item will be linked with your project WBS element, and there is a integration will happen, and there is a revenue flow in between this. So revenue planning, revenue recognition, all those kinds will be happening, and WAP calculation. So when you talk about the project processes, so customer project has the maximum complexity. Because it has different angle, we need to map it. So there will be milestone, based on the milestone, it have a billing. So many things comes into the picture. Then the different functionalities. Basic functionality is the project structuring. So we need to structure the project. That is the initial things, right? So whenever you get a project, so we need to have the project structuring. So PS module supports that. So these are the different structure which you're seeing it in the screenshot. You can structure it as a WBS element, which is called the hierarchical structuring. Then you have a sequential structuring, which we call it as a network. So both the way you can structure it like in the sequential manner, how it is executed, in the hierarchical manner, how you are splitting the project into small chunks to handle it. So this is both are possible, and this functionality is available as part of the PS module. Then the next functionality available is project scheduling. So this is again, we call it as a date planning function, and we have to schedule it, right? Because for example, you have a list of activities that you need to understand when to start, when to finish, right? And so this kind of time dependency and planning, which is possible in SAP PS. So it has the functionality project scheduling. So you can schedule a project. So we will come to know when the project will start and when the project will end. Because see what happens, you will have a huge list of activities, right? List of tasks which you need to complete. So when you list down, then those activities we connect together. Then system has the functionality to schedule. So automatically system will spread across the different activity based on the dependency. Then it will tell you when the project can be completed. So earlier, before the tool comes, people used to do it manually. So manually, there are different methods. The same concept is used in the tools also, or we can say the computer tools or system also. So we'll go into detail how it happens in the coming sessions. Then we have a concept or functionality called capacity planning and workforce planning. So here, for example, there is two concepts, right? One is capacity, another one is workforce. See, suppose I want to implement a SAP for a company where it has 4 modules, say finance, SD, and PS, suppose. So what is my total capacity required is how many people I need it. So I need at least minimum for functional and maybe one basis and one security, and you need at least one ABAPer to support and one Fiori consultant to support. So at least 8 resources I need it for 6 months, suppose. So this is my capacity requirement. So how much is the total resource required in terms of the quantification, right? Because how many people for how many months, just quantity. So that is what we normally call it as a capacity. So there is a capacity requirement. Now, the second thing is workforce planning. So for example, I have FICO. So Mr. X will work on FI. Mr. Y will work on SD. Mr. P will work on MM. So it is like that if you identify a person who is going to work. For example, in your company, you have 10 FI consultants. So we can say your capacity is 10. So maximum you can execute maybe implementation of 10 projects. So your capacity available is 10. Then one is you assigned for one project. So you got 10 projects. So you have equal capacity. So what is your available capacity? You are going to distribute it. Now you need to identify who will work for on which project. So this is what we call it as a workforce planning. So where we identify, because sometimes this workforce planning is required based on a qualifications, right? Because maybe there are certain people, one of FI consultant who is good in country India tax, right? SIN version. So okay, we will allocate him there. But one guy maybe he is good in European Union tax, so we need to assign to him. So these are the different qualifications we need to match it to identify people. So that is what we call it as a workforce plan. Then again, we have the material and external service planning, right? For example, whenever you talk about any project, let's suppose it is when you're talking about SAP implementation, surely there is no material involved, only services. But when you're talking about a constructing a building, right, where you have a lot of material is required. So this material you need to plan it. So for example, to construct a building, maybe you need say 50 ton of bars or steel bars. So it doesn't mean that all the 50 ton you require it in advance, right? You don't need. So when you go for the foundation, maybe you need 1 ton. So you need to plan it accordingly. So this is what happens, the material planning, right? So you plan it, so you get it. So you will have a requirement date on so and so date, this much of ton, this specification steel bar has to be reached at site. So that is based on the delivery date. You should be able to plan it. So that is the material. Now, second things, for example, you need to get these bars bended into shapes that you are giving to a subcontractor. So that is a service you are getting to a person. So that service you need to plan it. So bending of the steel bar. So again, everything you do not need to do it together, right? So you need to have during a foundation, this many bars has to be bended and received. So this is where we can plan the services also. So you have a capability of material planning as well as your capability of service planning. So both are available in PS, SAP project system model. Then next comes the most important is financial planning, right? Because financial planning means there is 3 things comes in the financial planning, 3 or 4 things, right? One is you have a cost planning. How much cost is overall required for this project to execute? That is a cost plan. If you're talking about a customer project, you should have something called the revenue planning. So when you will get the revenue from the customer, so when you are going to receive it, so there is a revenue plan. So this is another. Then you need to have something called payment planning, right? So this is all part of the financial planning. So cost planning is there, revenue planning is there, payment planning is there, budget planning is there, then automatically system will do a commitment planning. So all those things comes in the part of the financial plan. So this capability is there in project system. Then budget management. So this is an additional functionality. So there is a difference between cost planning and budget, which we will discuss in detail, but this is something additionally available in project system, because in SAP terms, because normally what happens, no, SAP jargon, or we can say the terminology which SAP uses and the business jargon. So what business uses may be a little bit different. So as a consultant, you should be able to understand both, and you need to communicate with them and understand them. So in business terms, normally they don't use the concept of cost planning. They will say budget only. But in SAP, we have both. Cost planning also there, budget planning also there. So what happens, it's a little different. Cost planning here, it is freely available where you can define it, but budget means there is a kind of binding happens with it. There is a additional control comes where your spend is controlled. You cannot spend more than what is available in the budget. So that way control happens in budget. So that is how SAP segregates its cost planning and budget planning. So that functionality available where you can have a budget, whether it is annual budget or overall budget, these kind of things. But some complex budget management comes. Then normally in SAP there is something special for example public sector companies and all, they use as a module called funds management. So that has a more detailed way or a controlled way of doing things. So if funds management is implemented, then we don't need to use SAP PS budget management. You can use the same thing to control here also. Okay, so just for your information. Then we have a concept called status management, where you can have different status controlled. And based on the status, you can control the certain business processes. Okay, so SAP gives system status, that is by default as a delivery. It comes along with a software where you can use it to represent the different business processes, different phases like that. But on top of it, there is an option we can configure the user status, which means the consultant can do it based on the business requirement. And there are certain activities which we can control it based on user status. So sometimes the approvals, workflows, and all those things we control it through using the user status. So this as a whole, with status management is across the module available in SAP. So in PS also it's available. We can utilize it both system status and user status. Anyway, system status is by default, but user status is more important where you can control it. You can put additional control and additional details for sometimes unique. You can use it for reporting purposes. Sometimes you can use it for the control purposes, and all those things is possible. Then the confirmations, right? So confirmations nothing but where you need to record the progress of the project. See, initially you planned it a lot of work packages, or you can say the tasks or activities you planned it. So now you need to see whether this activity is done or not, whether this activity is done as per the plan on time or not, right? So these kind of things, how do we record it in the system? For that, it is required the confirmation. So you should have a partial confirmation. So you need to have a final confirmation. So all those kind of confirmation is available. Then again, there is another way of doing things. You might have heard the term CATS, cross application timesheet, which is another cross module available in SAP. So that also we can integrate with PS, and where this confirmation can be automated. So suppose you are working in say IT projects or say SAP projects, then you have different tasks. So blueprinting is their task for, or you can say fit gap analysis. So that is for, you have to complete it in 10 days or 10 working days, right? So you have done the first day. So now you book a timesheet for day 1. Then that timesheet we can transfer into PS, then get it confirmed. Okay, this activity on so and so date, this many hours you booked. So 10 days, 80 hours is your overall duration or task required, the work. Then you first day 8 hours is confirmed. So 1/10 of the task is confirmed. So it is as per the plan. But even you pass 10 days, but you confirmed only 50%. So that is a different case, right? Then there is a delay. So these kind of things can be done automated also through the timesheet. So this is called the confirmation. So actual confirmations also possible. So recording of progress is also possible. Then this is the major things, right? Project related procurement, where you will have a huge requirement of material procurement, and not only procurement, you have to keep that product or the material in stock, maybe at site store or maybe in your company itself as a reserved for this project. So evaluated project stock management, we call it. or sometimes it can be non-evaluated. So this kind of functionality complexity comes when it comes to a more complex projects like manufacturing related projects. Suppose you are building windmills, or we call it as wind turbines. So it will be at site, different site. So you're a company, you're doing that, or where you need a lot of material to come. Then again, you have a different kind of scenario, right? You will never manufacture a wind turbine as it is. What you will manufacture is you manufacture small pieces, right? Then at site, when you assemble it, then it become a wind turbine, or you can say the electrical towers. So there are different scenarios where you need to have a we call it as a phantom assembly or assembly to order process, where you have assembly at site will be created. Based on that one, you need a lot of piece to be manufactured, and this piece manufacturing can be from different plant, different locations. So a lot of complexity comes in certain projects. So where project will become major things where you need to handle it. But good that SAP has the capability where you can handle the project related procurement. Then this cost integration and billing. This is something we call it as a resource related billing functionality. Mostly it is used where the customer service kind of projects, right? For example, you are a service company and you provide services to your customers, and you have a contract for that. Suppose you are a company where you do the AC maintenance, about air condition maintenance. So you will have multiple customers, and each customer you have a contract. So there will be base minimum amount, whether they any repairing you do or no, the minimum will pay. And you will have another condition saying that on top of it, if you are going to change any parts, right, then you will charge at that point of time, which is called based on your additional cost incurred, you charge to the customer. So this is what we call the cost integration. Based on that one, billing will happen. So that is what is the functionality we call a resource related with RRB in SAP PS. Okay, so where you do that, you go there, you execute the project, then you saw okay, we need certain additional material, so you deliver the material, then that material cost also consume, and you deliver some additional works you incur, then that work also you will that cost also will get it into the project. Then based on that project, you will bill to the customer. So this functionality also available. We call it as an RRB, resource related billing. Then there is a concept called claim management and workflows. So this is a functionality. It's a kind of obsolete nowadays from a PS perspective. So what is happening is this is we call it as a kind of issue management. So nowadays in S4HANA, as far as SAP is recommending, to use commercial project management system, CPM system, where you can have that issue management, one functionality, one sub module is available in CPM to use that one. So instead of claim management, but as a built-in functionality, it's available still. It's a kind of notification where you can have, and you can do the claim. So issue and change management, there is a module specifically available in CPM. So it has more advanced functionality. So SAP is recommended to use that. But this was the initial. If you don't have a CPM, then you are able to use this in PS through this functionality, where you can have certain issue you identified. We call it as a claim. Then due to that claim, sometimes maybe there is a cost impact, which is we call it as a change. Then that can be created in the claim. Then that can be integrated with the cost plan. So that is the functionality which happens in the claim management. And there's a workflow. Obviously, it's a notification where you can have different agent identified, and it will go to them, they can approve it and all those things. Then this is the most important functionality, which we call it as the project progress, or in the business term, normally we come to know that term that called earned value analysis, and another term milestone trend analysis. That is the same thing in both in business or in SAP. We use it the term milestone trend analysis. So this will be used to identify or record the progress. Okay, so in the end value analysis, you will have a certain method of measuring. So you need to measure the progress of the project. So there is a different methodology available. So based on that POC, we call it percentage of completion. So how much percentage your project is completed on a certain point of time. Then system will check whether that percentage of completion is as per your plan or it's delaying the plan or not. So if there is a delay, then system will calculate what will be your cost to complete the project, whether it will be within the budget or not, and all those things you can analyze it. So this is, we call it as an end value analysis. This functionality is extensively used across any project management. This is one of the functionality normally people will ask whether it can be done in the system or not. So when you're talking about a PS, yes, it can be done. It is in very much done. So only thing is we need to have the details to be configured and we need to be used from the system perspective. Then system will be able to generate this curve or milestone analysis curve, and all those things is available as a functionality in the system. Then this is again from the finance perspective, so which is again normally contract accounting term, or they use, or project accounting they use the term, right? Because mostly from a business perspective, they call it as a WIP, working progress calculations. So this is available as a period and closing functionality in project system. For example, you incurred certain cost, so that has to be settled in every month to your book of finance, where the finance will be doing the reporting, monthly profit and loss account, as well as the balance sheet and all those things. So those kind of accounting areas happens. So where you need to settle the cost, that is one thing. Then there is another thing, there is something called, we call it as a working progress to calculation, whether this cost is in working progress or not. That is mostly important when it comes to customer projects, right? Because customer project, you cannot have only cost, you should have revenue. You should not, you should know whether your project is going into a loss or not, or whether it is profitable or not. So this kind of accounting, there is a different way of doing things. So WPI calculations are there. So those functionality, it's a part of finance, but it is integrated within PS. It is supports. So project system supports for those kind of financial activities, or you can say financial calculations. Then different reporting available, hierarchical reporting, overview reporting. So inbuilt multiple reports are there. Nowadays, everything is on dashboards, everything on Fiori, and everything on SAC, we call it as, right? SAP Analytics Cloud. So that is a different concept, but as a report inbuilt, multiple reports are available. These were the earlier versions are available. That is carry forward into S/4HANA also. This you can still utilize it, those reports available. So this is an overview, high level overview. What are the functionality available in project systems? So what I have done, I have give you an overview of what is project management from a high level. Surely it's a long topic, that is right. You might have seen that BMP certification, Prince2 certification, and all those things. It is a very detailed, they cover it. But just in a high level overview, which I have given you, what is happening in a project management and what are the things which we need to look into control it. Then now I have given you what are the high level on what are the functionality available from a project system perspective. Then we can combine, okay, this functionality, this requirement of project management, we can link it with this functionality of project system and do it. And that kind of mapping. So that is basically the part of our job, as a part of our consultant's job, where we need to advise the business. Okay, you have this functionality. Okay, we can use this function from our PS. Then you can map it this way. So that is we need to advise. So based on these discussions, if you have any doubt, which the subject which we talk about, we can ask and we can discuss. Otherwise, we can close the session.
I have a question, Abdul. For the sessions coming forward, will we have like a how will we be able to do the configuration and other, like you'll be taking us like a scenario and doing the configuration, or just going through the notes? Just wanted to understand how are we going to plan the successive sessions. Can
Okay,
you hear me?
basically what happened. So we will initially we'll take one functionality, like we have gone through the multiple functionalities. So we take one functionality, we explain into it, and we take some scenarios how to address it. Then during the Q&A sessions, for example, you are working on a particular project and you will have a specific scenario, then we discuss that.
Okay, so you will not be able to give us like a, we will go through like a project, say for example, you just
Yes,
mentioned.
we will go through that one. We'll take it as high level scenarios, then we go through it. But surely maybe that may not be fit into your requirement. Then you will have a, okay, for example, my project is like that. How do we do that? Then those kind of question comes. Then we will explain to that.
Yeah, no. For the, yeah, I got you. For that is the theoretical part. For the practical
Yeah.
part, will you
Yeah,
go
practical
through?
parts also, surely we will jump into, see what happens. First, initially, you should know how to use the system, right, from a end user perspective. So we need to show you, okay, this is the transaction, how to do it, how to create it. For example, how to create a project, how to structure it. That is one thing. On top of that, we should know how the control happens from the backend, right? So that also will show you. Due to this configuration, this control, you are able to doing this transaction, and you are able to achieve these things. So that we will show it to you. Now the explanation which I have shown maybe may not be satisfied for your project or your scenario. Then you ask certain scenario, then we will show you, okay, if you do that this way, then it will be achievable this way.
No, I got that picture. But what I was trying to achieve is, or trying to get out of the thing is, you tell us that for the thing we will say like we will take a construction project, and what are the methods involved, and how do we structure it as per the details you gave. Say for
Yes.
example, start with this, and then for constructing of project for 6 months, what are the resources, how the WBS element is created, or how the investment is planned, and is that something you have planned, or we just go through the notes and then jump in and give us the
We have to take an example, otherwise it will be difficult to understand, no? So because just showing this is the node you configure means you will not understand it, right? So we have to take a practical scenario. Yeah, so surely we have to take maybe at least we have to take maybe for say SAP implementation. Maybe that is the basics. Everybody knows we all work in SAP, so it will be easy to understand it. Maybe an IT project that you can take example or anything. We can take it some example then go through it. Otherwise, what happened? Just seeing a node, then it is like reading a book, right? Then it will not serve the purpose of a training.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So, Abdul, one more question regarding this like PS and PPM. So, what is the time that it will take? How that time in these sessions? How much time you need to ask for that PPM part and for this PS part?
It depends on the courses, right? Because sometimes what happen if you are a beginner, then there is no point of going in depth detail. So initially we split these courses into for the different levels of team. Sometimes what happen, people join us who has already using the PS module or PPM module, and they want in-depth knowledge, right? So in that case, that will be we will be taking like your previous the other gentleman asked the previous question, where the scenario based. They will have a specific scenario. We go into in-depth that way. But for a beginner, what happened? We normally cover it like 15, 16 sessions or 20 sessions max. So we will cover it up one module. So for example, you need around 20 sessions for PPM, around 20 sessions for PS, like that. So it is like a decent understanding because you are starting learning from the beginning, right? So you need to understand the concept, you need to understand the things. So at least that will be capable of a certain decent levels of understanding. So once then you start using it, start working on it, then we can jump into the advanced course. Again, depends on the demand. So sometimes maybe 5 sessions, but only for a specific scenario we jump into it and go to that specific detailing on it. So if you say overall approxi, you can say 15 to 16 sessions. That is what for each module we, for a beginner, we plan it.
Okay, so that you are going to start with the PPM or PS for this session?
This session we will be starting from the PS.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me just.
And one more thing. So you mean to say it's a weekly session. So you mean to say how many total hours? Sorry, initially I missed that session.
Usually we keep it 1.5 hours. So in case if it is required, we can have a little bit more, because sometimes maybe explanation may not be enough. So we'll go through another 15-20 minutes extra, no issue like that. And max to 2 minutes. Because what happens if you go, because this project management is not a very rich subject, right? We will get bored also if you talk too much. So maximum 1.5 hour. 1.5 hour is a session time. So maybe we'll go up to 2 hours maximum. Because otherwise it will overload. For a perspective from a trainer also, you have to speak too much, and also from a learner also, you'll be overloaded.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. Is it possible to have it currently instead of 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock or something? Or this is the time fixed?
That we can based on the comfort of all the participants, we can adjust it.
Okay, thank you. And just what about the other participant? Is he happy with 10 o'clock approach?